Hi everyone, Melanie here. Hope you're all doing well and welcome back to my channel. I've taken some time offline because I've been doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes. I've actually moved home. I've moved out of London and I've moved out to the suburbs now, where it's a lot more peaceful and quieter, and it's awesome to get away from all the stress and chaos that is city living. So I used to have a counselling practice in London Bridge, that's central South London, and I'm no longer commutable to there really, so I've been busy putting everything online now. So where I used to see people face to face, now I'm only offering 100% online. So no matter where you are in the world, you can get in contact with me and have a session. Right, let's crack on with the video. In the time that I've been away, I've been getting a lot of emails, people asking me questions about their relationships, YouTube watchers, prospective clients. There are certain things that keep popping up in my emails. So I thought I'm going to make this video and just clarify questions that you have about this one particular theme, and that is codependency. Am I codependent? That is such a common question that I get from my clients and from my YouTube watchers. And alongside with that is, does this need to be resolved? Do I need to heal this wounded aspect of me, this codependent? I just want to start off and say that there is no actual scientific definition. It doesn't exist in official psychiatric literature, this definition of a codependent. It's a term that's become popularized, and initially it meant an enabler that was used amongst the AA groups. So the enabler, the concept of the enabler to just keep making the other person happy and enabling whatever bad habit they have, it's been used to represent people that are caretakers and people pleasers, and those who like to be the peacemakers and will do so at the expense of their own sanity and well-being. And interestingly enough, the people who ask me, am I codependent? It generally is the people who have learnt to be peacekeepers in their families, those who like to make other people happy before they can really feel happy, those who are the caretakers who had to look after family members. When you felt like you had to be the adult, you had to be the parent in the family and mature quicker, not really have a childhood because you've had to look after a caregiver who was behaving more like a teenager for whatever reason. Caretakers, people pleasers, the peacekeepers, such people have become this way from early childhood. And I would also say they have an innate temperament which would have qualities of being kind and compassionate and have high levels of empathy. So that combined with an environment in which they've learned to enhance these skills to make the environment safe for them. This is the essence of the codependent person, in my opinion. It comes from having to manage very difficult and challenging situations when you're a kid. When you walk into the room and your mum and dad are arguing, and you're already quite an empathic, intuitive child, and you know that they're just, something's wrong, they're not happy, and then you learn to go soothe that parent, that caregiver, to calm them down, to make them happy, because then they would calm down, and then you as the child could actually finally relax and breathe and feel safe again. It's like children like this develop antennas when they walk into the room, and they can easily suss out the atmosphere and the energy in a room. They become this way. They've developed their natural innate temperament, their skills of empathy and being observant. And this becomes amplified to the point where they develop this habit. And this habit is making the other person happier so that I can feel safe. Now, when this habit gets started in childhood, it's there for a reason. It's when we're young, we're still building our sense of self. We don't know about the world. The world's still a big and scary place. Our egos are still developing. So we desperately need defense mechanisms and to have habits like this for us to stay safe. But the problem is that these habits become so ingrained that they carry on with us into adulthood. It's not like our brains suddenly say, oh, okay, I'm an adult now and I'm living away from the family and hey, I can do what I want now. I don't have to look after people. No, actually, often we're carrying on these behaviors. We're seeking out relationships in which we can fix people, we can look after someone else because that's what's familiar. And we will always be driven to repeat what's familiar to us. This is how the unconscious works until we resolve this within us. And that's to bring it to the light, to bring it into consciousness and think, okay, wow, I'm doing this. Why am I doing this? You're doing this because this is a pattern from the past that saved you as a kid, but it's turning against you now as an adult. That's the thing about ego defense mechanisms. They lose their expiry date really quickly, and the longer they go off the shelf, the more toxic they become in our lives. So we end up finding ourselves in really dysfunctional relationships, whether it's because we've had to enact this as a kid, looking after a mother who's borderline, for example, or dealing with a father who's highly narcissistic. These are things that we've accepted as familiar. And if we, as a child, we witness abusive behavior between parents, on some level, we're accepting this as normal. Even though we don't like it, the templates have been set already to accept what's normal behavior from a partner. This all carries on with us into adulthood until we can actually bring it out of the unconscious. See, the conscious drives you. Whatever you're not really paying attention to, whatever you resist to challenge and to see in the light, it will keep pushing you. So until you start challenging this aspect of yourself, to start challenging your behaviors that are destructive, when people message me and saying, I keep finding myself in these relationships where I'm just with someone who's a mess and I'm becoming their mother. Have you actually dealt with this aspect of yourself before? Have you actually stood in front of a mirror and think, okay, these are the traits, these are the sides of me that I'm not seeing, that I'm seeing that I'm not liking when I'm in a relationship with these dysfunctional people. Am I now going to look at it now and address it? Yes, well, you are, because that's why you're watching these YouTube videos. You're on the right path. Just keep looking at it. It's called shadow self-work. I often talk about it in my videos. I'm going to drop it in every now and then, but it's having the courage to actually look into the proverbial mirror and to willingly accept that there are parts of us that we don't like, the parts of us that want to help those who we really should stay away from, and the anger and the shame for betraying ourselves, for knowing that we shouldn't be going after these kinds of people, and yet we still find ourselves sliding into relationships like this. And not just romantic relationships, relationships with friends, with family, with colleagues at work. If you're finding yourself still keep slipping into these kind of codependent relationships where you're looking after people who you really don't need to look after anymore, the childhood is over, then now's the time to actually think, okay, what is coming up in these relationships? What am I being mirrored that I'm not ready to face yet, that I haven't accepted yet? So let's talk about what the essence of a codependent relationship is. Most people, when they think of someone who's codependent, a codependent relationship, it's someone who's needy. The essence of neediness. Generally, in a codependent relationship, you have one person who needs the other partner, and the other person needs to feel needed. So both of them have this needing to be seen, to be in the relationship, but different kind of energy. One's more the enabler, and the other one's more the recipient. So if you can relate to this, have you been the enabler, the caretaker, the one who wants to look after the other so that they can feel needed, so that they can feel like a sense of purpose, of validity in their life? So to call yourself codependent is a very broad term for a lot of us, many of us, whether you have a personality disorder or not. And from the perspective of someone who's borderline, for example, they need someone around to give them sympathy resources, for them to rescue them, for them to not feel abandoned, for them to play out in their dramas of, I want you, go away, I love you, I hate you. They need someone ultimately to give them the love that they didn't consistently get as a child. So they need someone for that. They need someone to give them the sympathy. Even when they break away and they want their own space and they don't like the person anymore, it won't be long until the fear of loneliness and rejection and abandonment pushes them, really motivates them to find someone else, to jump into other relationships, or if not, indulge in impulsivity. And there's also people who are very highly narcissistic, people with NPD, And they need people around to confirm their grandiose sense of self. They need people to say that they are this amazing persona that they put, the mask that they're wearing. They need people to confirm that because it's not real. And so they need outside people to make this make-believe reality real for them. If they didn't have people to confirm it, it wouldn't happen for them. They will need to seek out and have people confirm that they are amazing, because they can't hold this grandiose sense of self, this full self. They can't maintain it on themselves for too long. Eventually it does start to crack, because this full self has been built on in cracky, shaky grounds. They haven't got a real grounded sense of self. And so they will always seek out people to think, hey, please reaffirm to me that I'm amazing as I think. That's an issue of codependency as well. They need someone there to feel happy and safe and confirm their identity, their existence. You don't really find highly narcissistic people alone for too long. They'll always need someone there. They need the comfort. They need the resources from someone. So as I said, in a codependent relationship, there typically tends to be the person who needs the other partner and will be the people pleaser, the caretaker in the relationship. And the other one, the recipient, the other partner, will be the one who needs to be needed, although both really need to be needed. So if you can identify with the former, if you're the person that kind of needs the partner, and generally these are the people that are contacting me, asking me if they're codependent, I would say personally put the label to one side. I'm going to do a video right after this because this is also an important subject. Do labels matter? Should I identify with this label? Do I need to keep labeling everything? I'm going to go on to that into another video, but what I will say is that I personally would drop the codependent label. Is it really serving you? Because like I said, it doesn't actually exist in official psychiatric literature. What it is really is is relying on the other person to make ourselves feel safe again. Like I said earlier back in the video, it stems from childhood when we need to look after our caregivers, our parents, family members, and we're doing this because we're doing it to emotionally self-regulate. It's easy for us now as adults to learn new tools about how to emotionally self-regulate, but as a kid, we're not given these tools. We learn just from the environmental conditions. We're kind of forced to develop this. So some people who are experiencing trauma, if perhaps they have a family member who's also perhaps borderline, sometimes they may become borderline themselves. Sometimes they may actually become the people pleaser, the caretaker, peacemaker kind of person. And I personally think for both, it's largely innate temperament and also environmental factors as well. It's nature and nurture. With borderline personality disorder, for example, they've found that there are certain innate traits in our temperament. Now, temperament is what we're born with. Personality is what becomes shaped over time. So as I said, a typical codependent relationship is often with someone who needs the other partner and will typically please them and placate and enable them, however you want to put it, serve them, and they get a sense of purpose through that. They get their sense of happiness, purpose through pleasing the other person. It's a way of emotional regulation, which dates back to their childhood. For whatever reason, they had to look after family members and cheer them up and be the class clown maybe, or be the counselor in the family, or amongst friends, for example. When you're growing up, these aren't random patterns that just magically appeared out of nowhere in adulthood, especially if you find yourself in repeated relationship patterns, not just romantic relationships, but with friends, with work colleagues. You see a pattern where you're overly nice, perhaps not being assertive enough when you need to be, placating the other person because you just want to keep the peace. You don't want drama. You just want people to be happy. You want yourself to be happy. I get it. And there are times when we kind of all have to do this at some point. Sometimes a situation calls for it where you kind of have to bite your lip and just smile and just get on with it. Sometimes at work or family events, whatever it is, it's when you're using this on automatic, on default. Your reflex is to placate, to submit, so to speak. It's a fawning response to make the other person happy so that, you can breathe and be happy now. And a sense of finding purpose through this, that my purpose in life is to make others happy because it's a good thing. Hey, we need more people in the world to be kind and compassionate. However, using that as a justification and a reason for finding yourself in relationships in which you're ultimately used by the other person, but putting over that as, hey, it's a good thing because we need more people to be kind and compassionate in the world. You need to have boundaries. You need to be assertive. Yes, be kind and compassionate, but know your self-worth. Know to put boundaries and say no, to be more assertive. It's easy for me to say, do this, do that, but the unconscious rules us. So if you haven't really looked into these aspects of yourself as to why I'm so nice, why I keep finding myself looking after someone who's dysfunctional, not even necessarily dysfunctional, it's just perhaps at work, if you find yourself being a doormat or a pushover, and the anger that's felt afterwards can feel like it's aggressiveness, and it's just fluctuating between being passive and aggressive and feeling ashamed for going to this end because you don't identify with this. You're a good guy, you're a good girl. You know what? You can be kind and compassionate person and still have boundaries and say no, and to say if you're not happy with stuff. We need people to have boundaries in this world, otherwise you will be walked all over by people who want to use you, whether that's maliciously intended or not. That means at work, that means with friends, and that means in romantic relationships. So, codependency, is this something that I need to resolve within myself? The essence of what it means, the finding yourself getting to relationships with the sense of needing this to please the other person, or the person receiving it, and needing the other person there to feel safe within and happy within themselves. You're basically saying you need the other person to emotionally regulate yourself, that you need the other person there to look after, to then feel a sense of purpose because maybe this is what you've been doing for many years, or that you need someone around to abuse you because, hey, it's familiar, you may not like it, might make sense to anyone else, but you find yourself sticking with this person because you can see that deep down they are a really good person. And I think deep down amongst most of us, even the most twisted of us, they are still genuinely good people. Doesn't mean that you have to rescue everyone. You don't have to save everyone. I think it's good to also let go of the martyr complex a little bit and stop thinking of ourselves as saints, because you have to look after yourself, okay? When you get on a plane and they're telling you the descriptions of what to do in an emergency, there's a lack of oxygen, put your oxygen mask on first before you help other people. You need to apply this to yourself in your own daily life. There's nothing wrong with looking after people, caring after people, but you need to meet your needs as well. And if you don't do this, it means you become depleted, you become worn out, become jaded and cynical. And it's the anger held at not actually having your own needs met. You deserve to have your needs met. Now's the time to do it. And it actually comes from addressing this aspect of yourself and thinking, do I want to be like this anymore? You can still be the same person and take control back. And this is what it is. It's an external locus of control, a feeling of, I can't make myself feel better. I need someone else around to help me do that. On the basic level, it's a feeling of needing others to make ourselves feel happy, to feel safe, to feel validated, needing someone to constantly give us positive mirroring because we didn't get it as children. So there has to be a switch now, thinking I need to stop relying on other people's for self-affirmation and validation, start giving it to myself. That's the question you should be asking. If you feel like you're codependent, if you're sick of entering into codependent relationships, now is the time to do some good old-fashioned shadow self-work. And that is, okay, there's this part of me that just keeps getting walked over, and I'm really pissed off with that. I'm really angry at myself for getting into abusive relationships. I'm fed up of getting walked all over. What do I do? Has this happened in the past? Is this something that's familiar? Is this a repetitive pattern? It's often with a primary caregiver, mum, dad, close family member. What is it that you needed at that time? You got to figure out a way to give it to yourself now. And that can be adopting more spiritual outlook in life, more philosophical outlook in life, learning to how to raise your own self-esteem, your own confidence without relying on the approval of others. If you Google search what codependent people are like, you'll tend to find that they have low self-esteem, low self-confidence, low sense of personal power. That makes sense because you're projecting your power onto other people and relying on them to make you feel better. That's what I meant by external locus of control. If you're freaking out about being codependent, you're really feeling ashamed perhaps of being in one too many codependent relationships, I would say stop being so hard on yourself, because so many of us have been here, been there. And it's because everyone to some extent experiences trauma as a child. We can only hope for good enough parenting, and yet trauma is also subjective to an extent. What one child might perceive as like a traumatic childhood, another one perhaps has a temperament to like not really care as much and not really affected by the same kind of conditions. Point being, someone might perceive trauma as to be a lot worse than another, and obviously children have suffered various types of abuse. So as a result, people just develop these ego defense mechanisms and this way of being to cope, to adapt, to survive in a difficult and uncertain childhood environment. So for some people, it might turn into personality disorders. And for some other people, it won't be a personality disorder, but it will be the type of person to perhaps want to please others and to help and to resolve the situation, keep the peace. It feels awful to have all this bad energy around. So I would say, if you're feeling this way and you need some help, listen to what I said in the video. It's about looking into the past and thinking, okay, this has happened. This may explain why this pattern keeps happening. How can I resolve that? So learn to take control back. To take control back means relying on yourself to build your self-esteem, your confidence, and your personal power. When you start to do that, and this is the great thing about self-esteem work, the more you do it, even just every day, it builds up and it gives you even more confidence and even more self-esteem. The more you keep doing on this and reflecting every day how far you've come, it builds personal power as well. So you can totally change this. If you're sick of being in codependent relationships, you completely have the power to do something about this. And you have the edge over someone who perhaps has a personality disorder because they're very much still driven by unconscious defense mechanisms, more so than your average Joe or Jolene would be. So there is hope. You can do it. You can change. And it starts by taking an honest look in the mirror and not hating yourself for being like this, saying, okay, well, it's got me this far. I've learnt my lesson now. And just see it as the harder the lesson has been, the more of a wake-up call it is, because this is how urgent you need to change this. So change it. So I'm going to leave it there for now. And if you want any more information, I have some free audio on my website. So what I previously had for new subscribers, I've now put on as an audio on my website, golfcoach.com. And for new subscribers, I have new audio now, and it's about how to spot the covert narcissist in your business life and your personal life. Just a bit of like a fun, casual audio that you can access for free instantly when you sign up to my website, golfcoach.com. Scroll down the homepage and enter your email address. And as always, if you've got any questions, feel free to email me, mel@thegolfcoach.com, and I shall be making more videos soon. Until then, take care for now.